Hi, welcome to my channel where we question everything. Today's topic is why I disagree with Gonzales Lira, and specifically his video that he published on the 29th of October, which is called "Americans Are Itching to Fight the Russians." Now, I've been watching Gonzales since about the beginning of the year, and well, he's a good narrator. He was supposed to be a journalist, and he's currently living in Ukraine. In fact, he's living in Kharkiv. And I thought that he would know what's going to happen and how he would report on the events in Ukraine. And, well, his stories were interesting. Then somehow, basically, his videos stopped and so on. And, well, they have recently been reintroduced. Most of them were live shows or live interviews. But again, lately he has made his own short videos. And this is basically the second one that I'm seeing. And also the second one I'm commenting about. Now, I'm not going to do a hell of a series about him. But what I sometimes, as I said many times before, that if I watch some videos and I do have questions and don't agree with them, then I make a video like this. It doesn't mean I'm against them, it's just that I don't agree with them. And the question always arises, do you always agree with your friends? And I say no. In any case, my last video was basically when he discussed the 104th Airborne Division that's supposed to attack Ukrainian Odessa city from Romania, and I talked about it. That's a totally ridiculous view. And in this video, he continues with this narrative. I don't know why, but apparently he has read an article on the Seikers website about a certain person that made a military analysis and basically presented a military strategy on how you could use the 104th Airborne Division to finally occupy Odessa. And he basically stated that it should be the capital of Transnistria. From there on, they should launch it. Now, when I read that article, I knew it was a pure military view. There is no other objectives stated in that article. He didn't discuss whether it is a viable option or not. He just looked at the military aspect. And this is what Gonzales is actually referring to. And he talked out a little bit about that. And then when I noticed there were basically about say 100,000 views of his videos, and the complete contents of his video was, in my opinion, bollocks. I thought to myself, hey, that's 100,000 people that are now duped by his narrative. And therefore I decided to make this video. Now, I'm going to just shortly discuss what the situation is. Number one is with the US 104th Airborne Division is now stationed in Romania. It was part of a rotational force. It's not a new force. And it has about 4,700 soldiers. Now, one must never forget that there are some Russian peacekeepers in Transnistria since 1992. And these Russian troops are about 1,500 strong. They consist out of the 82nd and 130th Separate Peacekeeping Motor Rifle Battalion. So they are also light infantry, just as they are the US Airborne Division. And the Russians have some independent security and support battalion, and then they have a helicopter detachment, and then they have a small administrative detachment. Now, typically, like what the Americans usually do, they deploy certain personnel in certain countries of conflict or possible conflict, and should anybody else attack those forces, then attacking American forces is like a tripwire. Now, the same will happen here. Firstly, the American division or the airborne division has to cross into Transnistria and then advance, and then they will have to come in contact with the Russian soldiers that are stationed there. And then the conflict will start between them, a skirmish, and then the first US soldiers will die. And then there will be body bags returning to America. In the meantime, the Russians will have noticed and alerted to the matter by information, intelligence, and satellite views. So they will be prepared for this type of action, and then they will send reinforcement. And as we have seen in some of the videos that were broadcast during the Kharkiv offensive and the reinforcement of the Russian defensive lines there, the Russians do have huge helicopters that can transport APCs and artillery pieces and etc., etc. So suddenly this light armored Russian contingent will develop into a more heavier armed contingent, supported by more troops and artillery and tanks and so on. And suddenly the move from Romania to Odessa doesn't sound that interested anymore. But in any case, you know, why would they do it in any case? Why would another airborne division enter Ukraine and occupy Odessa? That would mean basically a NATO war, and NATO will become part of the conflict in Ukraine, and then we will have World War III. So what's the point of this? And then we talk about, again, how these troops will be supported by the US Navy that will enter the Black Sea. Well, first they have to get past Turkey, and that's going to be a problem. And then, you know, then we have to ask yourself, so the US Navy then has to defeat the Russian Black Sea Fleet Navy, and then they have to survive the coastal ship missile batteries, and then they have to survive the Russian long-range cruise missiles, and then they even have to survive the Russian hypersonic missiles. And then I say, come on. You know, when Gonzales releases this type of videos, and he should tell his audience up front that he's talking, or going to present a fictional story to them, because it has no basis in reality, and it has no value in a non-fiction world. And then Gonzales moves on and talks about the drone attack on Sevastopol. And, well, again, he mentions that the type of drones that were used against the Russian fleet were basically underwater naval drones. But you can watch some videos that were published on Telegram, and it is usually, even southfront.org has a lot of videos retrieved from Telegram, so you can always watch it there. And then you can see clearly an image from one of these UAVs approaching a Russian Navy ship, and you can clearly see it's above water. So I'm not sure why. This is the second video where Gonzales actually talks about underwater drone, and that's not right. And then you can even go quickly Google and search for some photos of these Ukrainian drones, and then you will find it looks like a small, call it canoe type. There are photos of that available of Ukrainian drones that had washed up in Crimea before, earlier this year. So there is no evidence these things will be underwater drones, and 99.9999% they are above water drones. So why tell the story? you should make, it's not very difficult to verify the facts. Or initially, if you want to talk a story, then tell the story as it is. And it talks about an American or a US surveillance drone that was zigzagging across the Black Sea. But that was only reported by Russian in Telegram channels, and also that Pravda specified that there was the US Air Force Intelligence Services type of recorded all the attack and also made corrections to that. But these were all unofficial channels. Neither the Russian Minister of Defense or Ministry of Defense, nor neither the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Russian ones, talked about this or confirmed any UIV, American UIV, that was guiding these this attack. And then we come to the main part of this video, or his video, Gonzales video. And that is the title: Americans are itching for war and conflict with Russia. Now let me tell you, nobody is itching for war. No, unless you are an idiot or a psychopath. You know, in a war is a terrible thing. It's not, in war there is no glory. Once the shooting starts and your people start getting wounding and dying around you, you see the blood, you see the severed limbs, you hear your buddies calling for their mothers, crying like little babies. Then you realize this is not a PC game or a Hollywood movie. This is a real thing. And we know most of the Americans were supposed to be toured in the Middle East, so they should be experienced in the effect of war. And we also know that they have huge post-traumatic stress from their tours. So they have realized what war is all about, and I tell you, nobody really wants it. I know there are some American soldiers, according to Gonzales, who brag about this. But again, I saw a lot of other people that also brag and they were in the army, but they were never in the army, or they were in some non-combat role. So their opinions means nothing. In any case, then again, Gonzales talks about the United States declaration policy or the use of nuclear bombs and so on. Again, you can find that document easily. And in page 44, that's where most of the information is stated. That's relevant to the topic. And I just will quote to you. While the United States maintains a very high bar for the employment of nuclear weapons, our nuclear posture is intended to complicate an adversary's entire decision calculus, including whether to instigate a crisis, initiate armed conflict, conduct strategic attacks using non-nuclear capability, or escalate to the use of nuclear weapons on any scale. The United States would only consider the use of nuclear weapons in extreme circumstances to defend the vital interests of the United States or its allies or its partner, end quote. Now, if you listen carefully, there are two important principles that are expressed. The one is, it is intended to complicate an adversary's decision calculus. That means the whole protocol was written as is to be vague so that the enemy has to think twice on whether he will attack or not, and whether that would be a viable option, and whether America will retaliate in terms of nuclear war, armament. And that's the whole purpose. Nothing more, nothing less. And then America clearly states, the second point, they will only consider the use of nuclear weapons in extreme circumstances. They're not going to use nuclear bombs in Ukraine willy-nilly just because for the sake of it. You know, Once nuclear weapons are used, then there is no turning back. There is only one way forward, and that is mutually assured destruction. And who wants to have that on his conscience? Number one. And who wants to commit suicide? Because whoever presses that button committed suicide. And then Gonzales goes and says the American army is weak. And he tells us a lot of stories. And according to, they lost most of their best soldiers during the pandemic. Why would they lose their best soldiers? Where's the evidence? They lost soldiers who didn't want to be vaccinated. Well, that's who says the bulk of it? How many have left? Why were they supposed to be the best soldiers? On statistical average, it will be normal people. Yes, there will be good soldiers have left, and there were also bad soldiers that would have left. But, you know, why? And then the third statement that he makes is that Americans usually always abandon their friends in needs. As soon as the going gets tough, the tough gets going, you know, running away. So firstly, the Americans are itching for war. Then he states that the American army is weak and overweight and all the other junk that goes with it. And then he says that the Americans usually abandon their allies, typical example, Afghanistan, and bail it out of the scene. Now, isn't that contradictory? Yeah, it's fully contradictory. So what is Gonzales really saying? It's a nice story. It's a fairy tale. And if you're trying to, well, like I said, it's a nice talker. If you want to distribute fairy tales, then say that up front. But don't pretend that you know everything or know about it. I followed Gonzales, like I said, at the beginning of the year, when I didn't know much. But now I do read a lot, and I have my own opinions. And unfortunately, it's starting to disappoint me. Anyways, that's my end of the story for today. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more. Let's access more YouTube video features. And spread the word. Share it with your friends. And until next time, cheers.